Okay, so what we are doing is we are switching to review mode.
Right.
We are not going to do the acid basis stuff since they clarified that they're not even sneakily going to try and ask any of the stuff in there. So officially the test is only through what they consider units 1 through 7. And the main unit we hadn't done actually is 8. We had already done over half of unit 9. So we really just had that acid-based stuff left to do. But if they're not going to test over it, then I'm like, toss it, and we'll just start reviewing. So did everybody get the email or an email from College Board explaining any of your stuff?
Nope. My colleague.
Yeah. Have I read it? No.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
So I don't remember when everybody's stuff is, but our test is Thursday, May 14th at 2 p.m.
All right.
So since they've basically shifted to having everybody in the world take the test at the same time. So, because they don't have the time to make multiple tests like they normally do. So that's why the tests are later than they used to be, because they used to be 8 a.m. So 2 p.m. is when most of your tests are actually going to be. Some of them are a little bit later and some of them are a little bit earlier, but not most. You should also either expect or ask your other AP teachers what the specifics are about their test, because they did actually spell it out. And for the most part, it makes sense. So like I said, the English test is now, what did they call it? The type 2 essay, whatever that means. I think one of you guys said that's rhetorical analysis. I don't even know. Every single history class now, whether it's US or world or whatever, is a DBQ. That's what you're doing, is a 45-minute DBQ. I didn't pay attention to the math, but they said what calculus is going to be. But for chemistry, we've got 2 free response questions. You've got one question that's 20 minutes. You'll have 5 minutes to upload your answers, and then a second question that is 15 minutes, and you will have 5 minutes to load up your answers. They are not allowing you to go back to the first question once you've switched over to the second question. So they are just kind of locking, which is different from what it used to be. You could do the questions in whatever order. So you are locked in that regard. You do need to make sure that you have your own periodic table and formula sheet. It is also considered to be open note, but with the time constraints, it's not like you're going to have time to flip through stuff to learn how to do something you don't know. That's not really what our goal is. So kind of the way I've envisioned reviewing is Unit 1 is completely from last year. Unit 4 is almost completely from last year. Portions of 2 and 3 are also from last year. So I was going to spend a little bit more time focusing on those because that's the old material. And then we'll still go through 5, 6, and 7, which is the newer stuff. But what I wanted to do is, and you can kind of see it here on the screen, I've got 3 different documents here and links to 2 different videos. So I just want to go through what those things are really fast so you can see, and then talk about how this is going to work. So the first thing is this unit overview document. The unit overview document is literally, these are the learning objectives and the essential knowledge statements for each, for unit 1 right now, and then I'll make it for all of the others. And I essentially put a checkbox next to it. So my suggestion is that you click on this document, make your own copy, and if you know how to do something, then be like, oh, cool, I can calculate quantities of a substance and its number of particles using dimensional analysis. That is moles. Can you mole? Can you use a mole map? Check mark. Yes. Boom. Look at that whole thing. I don't have to worry about it. I can do that. So this kind of tells you the very concrete statements of what it is they expect you to be able to do. Okay, so that's what this document is. This is just for your reference. I'm not going to be doing anything off of this document. Then the second thing, the collaborative notes page. This is something that you will need to work on outside of class time. So collaborative notes page, if you look, the instructions are on there. It says add 2 contributions for any of these learning objectives and tag with your initials in a comment. So if this is an open note test, I figured the best way to do that is if we have an actual place for notes for each unit so that you have those. So right now, this is a shared document. Once we're done with it, you should then make a copy of it and alter it based on what you need. But right now, for unit 1, there's 8 learning objectives. So you will notice there are 8 boxes with each one in there. And you should put whatever makes sense for reviewing this sort of information. Some boxes, like, we may decide that we actually don't need hardly any review in something, so we're not really going to put anything there. But if there are mnemonics, or if there's tricks, or if there's a really good example problem, or a really good review video, or something like that, or breaking down some terms, or like, what is the formula on the formula sheet that uses this, that sort of stuff, that's what I want you to put down in here. So I'm going to basically do, since we're in review mode, and I know Cassidy, I think, is the one who had asked, like, what are we doing for grades if we're in review mode? So here's what we're doing for grades. If you put 2 things on this collaborative notes document, you get full credit for a practice and application grade. Like, that's it. And so you just have to remember that this is shared amongst all 15 of you. So you have to be careful about deleting other people's work and whatnot. I'm going to know who's doing what, because you are simply going to, if you add something, you're going to highlight it and then add a comment, and you're going to tag it with your initials, right? That's how I'll know. So I would be like, yep, that's MB. I put that on there. And that's how I'll be able to assign credit. But basically, to start off with, I want to throw lots of information on these collaborative notes pages as we go through the review, and then we can pair things off. We can take things off as we're like, you know what, I don't really need that. That's too confusing. And you can do what you want with your own copy once we've done the collaborative one. Make sense?
Yes.
Kayla, you're funny. I'm MB. Okay. Because none of you have the same initials. That makes life easy. All right, the next thing, the review presentation. There is a set of teachers who have been making reviews.
Ooh. Nice.
And this is what we'll go through and do in class on Mondays and Wednesdays, is go through this review. It's got embedded practice problems, all this sort of stuff. We're going to dust off the cobwebs together doing this. But you have the link to it, so you can go through it whenever you want. And then these last things, video 1 and video 2, the College Board itself has paid a couple of AP Chem teachers to make review videos for each unit. There's typically 2 or 3 videos for each unit, and these are the direct links to those. Each one is about 45 minutes, but of course, since it's on YouTube, you can scan to whatever topic once we go through it on the presentation. If you're like, I didn't really understand that, let me find them going through it on here, because it's going to go in the same order. Like, they say, okay, yeah, learning objective 1.1, 1.2, like they do the same thing. So that's that. So basically on Mondays and Wednesdays, we're going to be working through that presentation, and I'm just going to be checking in to be like, all right, are people adding stuff to the notes page, blah, blah, blah. Then on Fridays, I'm going to have some practice free response questions that I'm kind of going to pick based on where it looks like we need more work throughout the week. And that's what we'll do on Fridays. And then the other grade will be doing the personal progress checks on AP Classroom. So I've opened them. I've opened the first 3 units up now. They're just open. They're not set to close at any time. And again, they will be completion grades. If you complete them, I will give you full credit, 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 on an assessment score. So that tends to be most people's lowest average is the assessment score. So as long as you just go through these personal progress checks, you can boost your assessment score. And in my email, I said that term 3, it looks like is going to end the 24th, 23rd, somewhere around there. That is a full, how many weeks away is that? I don't even know. 3. That's like 3 weeks away. So you've got 3 weeks to pull your grade up to wherever it is you want at this point. What?
Kayla.
Yeah. So, any questions so far?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Wendy.
So all the stuff on AP Classroom that's locked, so you're just gonna unlock all of those and we can just review like that?
Yeah, so I've unlocked the first 3 units, and for you and Nala on that quiz, I unlocked that quiz back open, so you guys can do it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I'll be able to reach this. So I will try.
Miss Baskin.
Yeah, Sean.
So my question was, since it is going to be an open note,
Is that right, Mom?
since it's going to be an open note quiz, does that mean, like, so some of the information that you would say, like, oh yeah, they'll give this to you, are they still going to give it to us, like the KSP values and all that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they're still going to give you that, but there's some things, like as we go through this review, there's some things that we can say categorically they're not going to ask a question like this because it would be too easy to Google.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we have to play around with. They're also still saying that I think in another 2 weeks, they're saying that we'll have either some sample questions or at least whatever platform they're going to do it on, they'll have a sample so that you can see. Essentially, you have to decide how you want to take it because it's going to be like a browser screen that has the question prompt. And if you're going to write out your answer and upload it as an image, which I think for most people, it's going to be much easier to write out on paper instead of typing it up.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to take a picture with your computer. So you'd have to take a picture with, your phone and upload it. However, you don't want to take the test technically on your phone because the prompt isn't going to be big enough to see. So that's why, like, we've really been saying, can we get a sample, like, so we can figure out, which browser is working better, like Chrome, or are there problems with Safari? Does it need to be a JPEG? Can it be a PDF? Like, how do they want any of this stuff? We still don't know. So teachers are pushing College Board to get that information to us.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, okay, just to confirm, the things that we need to do for grade-wise are the collaborative notes page, the review practice thing on AP Classroom.
Yes. And that's it.
That's it.
Those are the 2 things. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Baskin?
Yes, ma'am.
If we're only testing FAQs, so like, are we typing our answers or?
So they're giving you the option where you can type it or you can handwrite it and upload a photo.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, to be quite honest, like, chemistry is the one they've kind of given the least information for, because for all of the other tests that are essays, like I mean, everybody's just going to type it. Like we're literally one of the only classes where there's going to be photos, because it's like you'd have to, if you expected people to type or they weren't able to take a photo, well, if you were trying to type out math, you're going to have pretty broad leeway if people can't, do a superscript for their charge and a subscript for the, like for their formulas and stuff like that. And it's really awkward to try and type out math. So I think the expectation is everybody should anticipate doing it on paper. Make sure that you've got either a good dark pencil or a pen that shows up well, nothing light, and make sure that your work is very well organized, very legible, and that you write everything down. So no more like, this was the answer the calculator gave me.
Everything.
No. Write down what you did. So, yeah.
Ms. Bass, can I have a question?
Yes, dear.
So, you said before that we have about 3 weeks to pull our grade up.
I said what?
You said we have about 3 weeks to pull our grade up, but now relatively that we've reached like the end of like learning more stuff. Like, what kind of things will you be assigning for us to pull our grade up?
So the collaborative notes will count as practice and application grades, like the review questions. And that's just a completion grade. Either you put contributions on there or you don't. And then the personal progress checks are going to count as completion grades for assessment. So you do it regardless of the score you get on the personal progress checks. Like you went through the process of reviewing on AP Classroom's website, and I will give you, I need to decide if I'm going to do 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 as an assessment grade.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the classrooms will count for participation, like come into class.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the presentation. Okay. So the one downside about this presentation is I can't write on it. But that's okay. If people end up needing me to go over something, I can either grab my whiteboard or I can attempt to annotate this screen with my finger, which is not going to be good. But
I'm just asking.
Yeah, Sean.
So real quick, for these unit review PowerPoints, do you recommend we take notes like separately?
I mean, it's kind of up to you.
Okay.
So if you want to open up your own, Google Doc and type away or handwrite something as we're going through things, something you specifically like, oh, I don't remember how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I would write those down.
Okay.
But especially as you guys go into college, what you're going to find is that groups of people during classes do things like take collaborative notes at the same time. So that you are, because it can be hard during like a professor's lecture to catch everything they're saying. And so if you have 4 different people all working at the same time, you're more likely to actually get all the information. So It's just good practice so we can start getting used to it. Okay, so atomic structure and properties. This is literally what I'm teaching my honors class now. And it's what you guys learned last year. And even Suman learned most of this in regular. So Jordan, you did too. It's just been a minute. So there are also the video links all throughout here. So these 2 links, these are the same as what I have on the weekly plan listed as video 1 and video 2. Right? Video 1 covers the first half, video 2 covers the second half, but you can kind of see what topics they cover. And I think it's this second video that people are gonna want to watch more, because that's the one that people are like, I vaguely remember doing that, don't quite remember. So, okay, molar mass. Nobody has any questions about molar mass, right?
No.
We know how to do that.
What's that?
Can you imagine if we were this far and we still didn't know how to do
I mean, True enough.
You think I failed every test?
So the only thing I will say is Avogadro's number. While we don't use it very often, what few words are the keys to telling you need to use Avogadro's number?
Particles.
But do they normally use particles?
That's molecules, right?
Molecules and atoms are what they're going to say most of. If they're talking
Really?
about a number of molecules or a number of atoms, that's the only time you're going to have to use Avogadro's number. And it is on your formula sheet. So don't forget that. But otherwise, like topic 1.1, this learning objective is really, do you know how to use the mole map? And that is an abbreviated mole map down at the bottom. Right? Going back and forth between grams, number of atoms or molecules. On our mole map, what else have we put on our very own mole map?
We have molarity on our mole map.
We have molarity. What else?
And then the gases, the
yeah.
22.4. Whatever.
Yep.
Called STP?
Yes.
Okay.
And you only use 22.4 if you have the magic letters STP.
Okay.
And also, STP is defined on your formula sheet.
Wonderful.
And you get to use your own formula sheet now, which means you can annotate the F out of it, right? You can highlight it, right? You can add other things. So like when we get to kinetics and we just have those kinetics formulas, well, you can actually write down which thing you use for which one. So that's kind of a nice benefit.
Miss Benson, you sounded a little ghetto. You said highlights it. I said, oh.
I did. I'm starting to get stir crazy. So, okay.
Oh.
All right. If for some reason you need any review over any of those things, that is another nice thing about this this presentation is after each topic, they've put in specific links to videos as refreshers if you need a refresher on any specific thing and don't want to ask me in the middle of this, you can go watch it there. Okay. So, let's look at this really fast. I don't want to spend tons of time on this one.
Is mole fraction like mole ratio?
Yes. So it says the solution is prepared by adding 16 grams of CH3OH with a molar mass of 32 to 90 grams of water with a molar mass of 18. What's the mole fraction or mole ratio in this solution? So this is actually pulled from an old multiple choice question. And you can tell that because there's easy numbers. If I have 16 grams of something and its molar mass is 32, how many moles do I have?
2, 1. No, never mind. Let me just be quiet.
This is really scary. The fact that we just all went silent.
2.
It is not 2.
Oh, okay.
It is the inverse of 2.
1/2.
0.5.
Yay!
Oh, like 16 over. Oh, right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So y'all, we're gonna have to do a little bit better, okay?
Sorry, I don't know what happened to my
Nothing.
audio. I was saying the
No,
answer.
you didn't say a single thing.
Oh, Sean, shut up.
No, my audio was going in and out. I'm sorry.
Did I not say we?
Okay, so
Oh Lord.
yeah. All right. So we've got 16 over 32. So we've got half a mole of the CH3OH, but I've got 90 grams of water. So how many moles of water?
What?
You can use this.
Five.
Five. Yes. 90 divided by 18. So then,
I really was.
so if we have half a mole of the CH3OH and we have 5 moles of water, what's the mole ratio?
Is it 2 to 5? I don't know. This is
5
hard.
over 2. Well,
Is it 1 to 2.5?
like the rate? Okay.
What was the moles? What was the moles of the CH308?
Isn't it 0.5?
0.5 to 5.
You just you take the amount.
Oh, I said 2. I meant to say that.
Yeah.
I thought that it was one. I thought it was that. I thought we
Okay,
had
I'll
like
just
simplify it to some extent.
fraction. Okay.
Okay. And in your calculator, what is 0.5 divided by 5?
What? Oh.
25, 0.25.
No.
0.1.
0.5 divided by 5?
Oh, never mind. I lied.
0.1.
0.1.
0.1. Okay, I thought I was doing.
Jessica, I'm gonna need you to stop judging because I feel that
You're judging and you're yelling. You're yelling and you're judging.
Okay,
Judging
don't,
and yelling.
don't do that.
It's a review experience.
Okay.
Herbert.
All right. How many
Oh, come on.
atoms?
do that.
How many atoms are contained in 2.8 grams of C2H4? That is underlined and bolded in this review because it's reminding you that what do you have to use?
Avocado.
Avocado.
Oh.
Okay.
And the
So,
molar
but
mass.
and the
Wait,
molar
we
mass.
go to
Yeah.
moles first. You have to go from moles to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grams to moles to atoms or whatever. Yeah, atoms. To
Start with moles?
Well, you have to start with grams.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yes, 12. 0.01.
What is that?
Oh, so we have to calculate the molar mass, right?
Molar mass.
Yeah. Now they've made it easy because the molar mass is related to this original number.
Well, what?
Because they do that on
Oh,
these
it is.
problems.
Yeah, it's literally like
Yeah.
the, okay. Wow.
What is it?
Calculate it.
I am not going bending down.
Oh,
Okay.
she
I feel disrespectful.
Hold on, Miss Baskin. I'm doing it. It's happening.
Wait.
6.02. So, yeah.
Okay.
It's 28.05, Sean.
Thank you.
No problem, because we help each other out here,
Help each other out.
and that's gospel.
Shirley, be quiet.
Let's not forget who sent all that to the group chat. Let's not forget who.
Try to expose
Right,
yourself. Try to expose yourself as a fraud.
Okay,
fraud.
whatever.
Oh, shoot.
Who used it though?
Oh, shoot. Miss Baskin, I just deleted my whole problem. Oh, my God.
Sean, we will talk about that later in the group chat. Yeah, don't worry, because we won't do this on the recording.
Please.
That's good.
Exactly.
I can only imagine what Suman thinks when she watches these later.
Miss Baskin,
Yes, dear.
I've been watching these recordings, and I look a hot mess. So wasn't nobody going to tell me. So next time, I got y'all. 'Cause this is not okay.
No, I remember the second time we came into class and Miss Baskin said, "You look a mess." I said, "Oh." I said, "Oh, we're being bold today." That's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I have an answer.
What do we? Felicia typed out one answer. What answer are we getting?
1.7 times 10 to the negative 25th.
Yes, Kayla.
Period.
Yes, Kayla.
No.
No?
22nd? Never mind.
Now,
Let me redo it.
if you got the 6 point something times 10 to the 22nd, you were one step short. It wants to know how many carbon atoms there are. How many carbon atoms are in this molecule?
2.
So multiply your answer by 2 and you should get 1.2 times 10 to the 23rd.
Oh, okay. So after you, okay, wait. So I have grams and then moles over grams and then 6.02 over 1 mole.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a last step that I should have?
Yes, because you have 2 carbon atoms in this formula.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to multiply it by 2.
Oh, okay.
Multiply what by 2? Where?
Your answer.
Okay, let's try it again.
Okay, so I did something wrong somewhere else. So we're just doing that.
My calculator is so far across the room.
Oh, wow. That's ghetto. Times 2.
All right.
Oh, okay. Great. We're on the same page. Awesome.
Yeah.
Y'all can just wait like 2 minutes.
No.
No, I believe you. You're doing great. Woo!
See, Kayla loves me.
I mean, we all love you, but
I don't believe you.
whatever.
Bye, you guys start saying that. I don't believe you.
Can someone tell me how to put a picture on my screen?
Oh, you mean in the background?
Yeah.
Are you using it on your phone or on your computer?
Phone.
Well, I don't know, because I'm using it on my computer. It might be different.
Yeah. That's how it's set up.
I put mine in the wrong place. Okay, wait.
Oh,
I divided by wow.
I mean, it's okay if these
on,
two are
that's where you
switched,
at.
Okay.
but that's where that 2 is coming from.
Right.
There are 2 C's in the
Isn't
Molar
it a
ratio.
Mole ratio. There you go, girl.
Great, great.
I wanted to just personally say, so wait, if you, so when you're doing these hard problems, you have to look out for both, like the wording of the problem, and like in this case, have to worry about the subscript so you can know how many atoms there actually are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if they had said how many molecules are contained in 2.8 grams, well, molecule is the whole thing, the whole C2H4. So you don't have to multiply by 2 if it's just wants molecules. But if it
Okay.
wants atoms, you have to factor in the subscript in the formula.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that you don't know how to do the math. You know how to do the math.
I've arrived at the correct answer.
Okay. All right. Okay. 0.450 grams of iron contains how many atoms? That's a more straightforward question.
The fact that I still don't know where iron is on a periodic table.
This is baby work right here.
Do you want me to just say it out loud, or am I?
No, do not. No.
I
Thank you.
apologize. I was asking the question for a reason.
No, thank you for asking, because I would have been really mad if you just shouted it out.
I know. That's why I just had to say. I'm gonna say it privately. DM.
Oh, shoot.
This whole class has been an experience, so.
What?
This whole class has really been an experience. Like 10 years from now, I'm never gonna forget this class.
I probably will forget.
Oh wow.
Rude. So rude.
No, I probably just this.
Whatever.
We love you, Miss Baskin.
Oh, I'm not gonna forget this Baskin. Maybe this.
Well, I would hope not. Okay, so are you? What's the first step here?
To moles.
Converting to moles. So are you multiplying or dividing by the atomic mass?
Dividing.
Okay, and then what are you doing?
Multiplying by avocados.
Yes, good job, honey.
Thank you.
There we go. Is that what we got?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Well, no, I don't get my calculator, but still.
Yay. Okay. So, moving on. Next topic, mass spectroscopy. This is one of the only topics that Jordan and Suman did not do. We use the results of mass spectroscopy, but we did not analyze them or talk about it whatsoever. This was literally 1.5 days of work in honors chem, right? That's it. And it was this little machine, and we did a pogo packet on it.
Looks familiar. I can't remember.
Oh, okay. Yes, I remember this.
Okay.
I've seen this before.
So it separates things based on magnetic field and charge. So, right, you make things bend, and how heavy they are
Yeah.
will govern how much they bend,
Mhm.
right? And again, the talk is the difference between a semi-truck trying to take a tight corner versus a motorcycle trying to take a tight corner. So a semi-truck trying to take a tight corner can't really take a tight corner, and it barely turns and it bangs over here. But if you have a really small thing and it's trying to turn, well, it actually turns too much. And so the super, super light things turn too much, they deflect too much, and the super heavy things do not deflect enough, is kind of the way to remember that. Not that they are going to ask a specific question like that. But remember that the first step is you put something in, and then it speeds up, it gets deflected, and then it gets detected. So that's the process.
That was a little rhyme.
What?
That was a little rhyme. I heard it.
Thanks. And then I think, do you remember that that's the sort of graph that gets popped out? You remember, does that look familiar?
No.
Miss Baskin, do you mind going back? I just want to I'll take a picture. Thank you.
That's cool.
Miss Baskin, I have my binder from
Thank you.
last year.
Yay.
Why? It's sitting in my closet right next to me.
Okay.
It's torn up.
So, this is a type of question that they could ask that would not involve necessarily a lot of math, but would be interpreting experimental data. And we kind of think that that's more the direction they're going. So I want to make sure that you can answer questions off of a graph like this. So how many isotopes are there? The answer is 5. How can you tell there are 5?
5 lines.
You 5 lines.
Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this tiny little one, there are 5 lines. Okay. And then what does the height of the line tell you?
Abundance.
How much you have.
Abundance.
All right, how much you have. So who's the most abundant?
90.
There's 90 is.
All right, the 90. And if I wanted to calculate the average atomic mass, and regulars classes just calculated average atomic mass instead of looking at this graph, do you remember what is this 0.515 and the 0.112 and the
It's
0.1?
like the relative
value that you got up that you inferred off the side. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
the decimal.
That's a percentage, and they put it into a decimal. Okay.
Yes, yes. Okay, so those heights there are off of the y-axis, and we simply convert them into decimals by moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So please note that the 2.8% is 0.028 when you move it into decimal.
Wait, how do we know that the element is zirconium?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How would you know that the element is zirconium?
Because the atomic mass, you mean?
So you can estimate based off of the atomic mass. So if you look at your periodic table, the mistake that people make is looking at these numbers, these 90 values, and trying to match them to an atomic number.
Mm-hmm.
Do that. They're masses. So which element has a mass closest to 91.32?
Zirconium at 91.22.
Yeah. So that's how you know. Yeah.
If we were to get a problem like this on the graph, would they have more precise intervals so we can really see that that's 51.1, that's 11.2, or would it be kind of like this vague and we're kind of eyeballing it?
If they actually wanted you to do the calculation, it would be more precise. I don't think they'd actually ask you to do the calculation. That's kind of like the least interesting thing to do out of this, because the other thing is, like, I could ask a question, which of these has the most number of neutrons? And it would be the mass with the highest mass number. It would be the isotope with the highest mass number. So things like that. I do think they are going to try and move away from more like plug and chug calculations. So I don't think they would ask you how to do that.
Miss Baskin, aren't isotopes like samples of that element, like different, you know what I mean, like samples of the element?
Yes, so they're all samples of the same element, so they have the same number of protons,
Mm-hmm.
but they have different number of neutrons, so they have slightly different masses. So
Right.
they all behave chemically the exact same way because they have the same number of protons,
Mm-hmm.
but they're going to have minor differences in the masses because of the neutrons. And remember, neutrons are just nucleus glue. That's all neutrons are there to do, is to hold protons together and keep them from going. So let's do a practice problem. I did not mean to click that. Go away. So there's some videos on that. Practice problem. Okay, so there's a mass spectrum, and you can see the answer choices here are already labeled as A, B, C, and D. So based on that mass spectrum, which of the following statements would be false? And I couldn't get it to change. So there is the answer, but do you understand why that answer is the correct answer?
Peak D comes from an animal form. Well, they all come from the same amount of protons, right?
Right. So that's saying it's like, yes, it is a difference of 4 between 96 and 100, but it's not a difference of 4 protons. It's a difference of 4 neutrons. So that's what makes that statement false.
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
But do you see how all of the other statements are true?
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
You from the most abundant. Oh, why? Oh, yeah, because it's the highest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peak C comes from the most abundant isotope.
So
Yeah.
as well as having the same number of protons, they have the same number of electrons, but a different number of neutrons, which makes their masses different.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, now for this one, what is the identity of compound Y? Now you haven't done the full calculation here, but you don't have to. You're going to kind of estimate. So you know it's a round zirconium because we're still dealing with the 90s. So look and see what element you think that might be from your periodic table.
Okay.
Could it?
And we multiply it by the number, right? Like by 92 times.
You don't have to do all of that. You really can estimate. You know that it's not smaller than 92 and it's not higher than 100.
So is it more? I don't know what this MO is.
It's MO, yeah.
Molybdenum.
Molybdenum. That's real ghetto. Can you imagine?
Molybdenum.
Molly.
Oh,
Molybdenum.
I'll be good. How you spell your name? M-O-L-Y? Bye.
BDE.
I mean, it's how you remember how to spell it, right? Like people say connect, I cut, right? Connecticut. So molybdenum.
Exactly how I spell Connecticut. That's exactly how I spell.
Yep.
Molly B.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Which peak comes from an atom with the greatest number of neutrons?
D.
And how do you know that?
It has the highest mass number.
Highest mass number. Right.
I understand that.
Cool. Okay. So we've gone through two of the topics. It's actually, we're through our time for class, but on Wednesday, since I won't have to do all of the setup, we should be able to quickly go through all of the others. So at this point, as a reminder, you can start putting things on the collaborative notes pages wherever you want. I love that you're anonymous creatures, which is why you have to tag your actual initials. So if you wanted to put something in like, say, this first box, like how to remember when you need to use subscripts when you're talking about number of atoms versus molecules. Like that's the sort of thing that would be in here. Somebody wants to put a snapshot of their mole map in here, you know, things like that. An example graph for the isotope stuff, quick reminders about anything that helped you answer those questions. That's the sort of stuff to put in here. So between now and Wednesday, I would say watch one of these videos, start on the personal progress checks if you want, like do whatever makes sense. I'm just going to say that by next Monday, I expect your submissions on the collaborative notes page and the personal progress checks to be done. And I would suggest at least scanning through these 2 videos. They're about 45 minutes each. But again, since it's on YouTube and not on Edpuzzle, like you can watch it and stop it and fast forward it and do whatever you want. Make sense?
Yeah, about the collaborative notes page, how many in total by next Monday do we need to have?
To keep us from like overloading with too much, we'll start by having everybody put just 2 comments anywhere.
Okay.
Right? Not 2 per thing. Just you are responsible for putting 2 pieces of information in these 8 boxes. And then, because that'll be 30 pieces of information total. And then if it looks like one area needs more, I'll be like, okay, everybody's done their 2. If there's more stuff you want to add, then add more stuff. But 2 is all I'm looking for.
Wait, so we're adding information, not questions that we have.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Miss Baskin?
Yes, ma'am.
I just went to this page on my laptop, on my email, and I can't edit anything. So I just sent you the request to let me edit it.
It should, you clicked off the link here?
Yeah.
And it said you couldn't.
Yeah.
I think I put it as, that would be helpful. Let me change. All right, let me change that then. All right, refresh the page and see if it works now.
Ms. Baskin, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so just to be clear, to reiterate, 1, we need to make sure to do our collaborative note sheets, at least 2 per person. We need to attend the classes for participation, and then we need to be ready to do a Unit 1 personal progress check on the AP classroom.
Yes, and you do the personal progress check anytime between now and through next Monday's class, just for completion. Yep. And that you should be able to start and stop whenever you want. Like you don't have to sit down and do them all at once, I don't think.
Oh, lovely.
Isn't it?
Yeah. But what was I about to say? I had another question. Hold on, it's gonna come back to me.
Okay. Are we good? Because I actually have a meeting in 5 minutes.
A meeting?
Oh,
yes.
Busy.
My favorite.